My phone buzzed during my morning coffee, and I glanced at our family group chat, expecting the usual Sunday plans. Instead, I found a message that felt like a punch to my gut. My younger brother Jake had typed, "Don't come to the Sunday get-together. My new wife says you'll make the whole party stink." Within seconds, I watched in disbelief as my parents spammed likes on his message. Mom added 3 thumbs-up emojis. Dad wrote, "Good call." I stared at my phone, feeling something break inside my chest. After everything I had done for them, after all the silent sacrifices, this was how they saw me. I typed back a single word, "understood." What they didn't know was that tomorrow morning, Jake and his wife, Amanda, would walk into my office and discover exactly who I really was. The marble floors of Technova Industries gleamed under the morning sunlight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows on the 32nd floor. I adjusted my charcoal suit jacket and reviewed the quarterly reports spread across my mahogany desk. The company I had built from nothing now employed over 3,000 people and generated $200 million annually. My assistant Sarah knocked gently on the frosted glass door. "Mr. Matthews, your 9 o'clock appointment is here. Jake Matthews and Amanda Matthews from the marketing department." I suppressed a smile. "Send them in." Jake strutted through the door wearing his best outfit, a navy blazer that I recognized from the expensive shopping trip I had secretly funded last Christmas. Amanda followed behind him, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who believed she belonged in executive circles. "Good morning," Jake announced proudly. "I'm Jake Matthews, your newest marketing coordinator. This is my wife, Amanda. We're here for the executive meet and greet program you mentioned." I leaned back in my leather chair, watching their faces carefully. "Please have a seat." Amanda's eyes swept across my office, taking in the awards lining the walls, the original artwork, and the panoramic view of downtown Seattle. Her expression shifted from casual interest to confusion as she noticed the nameplate on my desk. "There must be some mistake," she said slowly. "This says Dylan Matthews. Are you related to our Jake?" I stood up, walking around the desk to face them properly. "I'm not related to your Jake. I am Jake's older brother. I'm also the founder and CEO of Technova Industries." The color drained from Amanda's face so quickly, I thought she might faint. She grabbed Jake's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. Jake's mouth fell open, his usual cocky demeanor crumbling like a house of cards. "That's impossible," Jake stammered. "You work with computers. You live in that tiny apartment. You don't have money." "Actually," I said calmly, pressing the intercom button, "Sarah, could you bring in Mr. Jake Matthews' employment file?" Sarah entered moments later with a thick folder. I opened it slowly, letting the tension build. "Jake, you applied for this position 6 months ago. Your resume was impressive, though I noticed several gaps in your employment history. Would you like to know why you got this job despite having less experience than 200 other applicants?" Amanda's hands were shaking now. She kept looking between Jake and me, trying to process what was happening. "I personally reviewed your application," I continued. "I made sure you were placed in the marketing department with the highest starting salary in your pay grade. I also ensured your direct supervisor, Patricia Chen, would be someone patient enough to help you learn the industry." Jake's face had gone pale. "Dylan, I don't understand. How is this possible? You never told us you had money." I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. "For the past 10 years, I've been what you might call a silent benefactor to our family. Every opportunity you've received, every lucky break, every mysterious scholarship or grant that came your way, that was me working behind the scenes." Amanda suddenly stood up, her voice rising to nearly a shriek. Wait. You're telling me that you own this entire company? You're a millionaire." "Billionaire, actually," I corrected quietly. "Forbes estimated my net worth at $1.2 billion last year." She screamed. The sound echoed off the walls of my office, a sharp cry of shock and horror that made Sarah peek through the door, to make sure everything was okay. The apartment complex where you two live. I added Sunset Gardens on Fifth Avenue. I own that too. Your rent is $3,000 per month, but you only pay $800. I've been covering the difference for the past 2 years. Jake slumped back in his chair, looking like someone had told him the world was ending. Why didn't you tell us? Because every time I tried to be part of the family, I was made to feel like I didn't belong. Remember last Thanksgiving when Dad introduced me to his golf buddies as his son who plays with computers? Or when Mom told her book club that I was going through a phase and would eventually get a real job? Amanda's breathing became rapid and shallow. Oh my God. Oh my God. Jake, do you realize what this means? Do you understand what I said to him yesterday? The weight of their situation was finally sinking in. Jake had spent years accepting my help while treating me like the family disappointment. Amanda had married him believing he was successful and well-connected, never knowing that every connection came from me. I returned to my desk and pulled out another folder. This contains documentation of every financial transaction I've made on behalf of our family over the past decade. The total amount is approximately $2.3 million. Amanda made a choking sound. Jake just stared at the folder like it contained evidence of his own crimes. Your wedding, Jake, I said softly. The one where Amanda wore a $12,000 dress and you had dinner for 200 guests at the Fairmont Hotel. You told everyone your marketing job paid for it. The truth is, I transferred $50,000 to your account the week before and told you it was a bonus from work. The silence in the room was deafening. Through the window, I could see people walking on the sidewalk below, living their normal lives, unaware that 32 floors above them a family was falling apart. Amanda finally found her voice. Jake, you told me you were successful. You told me you had money. You said your family was well off. I thought they were proud of me, Jake whispered. I thought I was doing well on my own. I sat back down feeling suddenly tired. I wanted you to feel proud. I wanted all of you to feel proud. But I also wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Matthews, you have a call from Robert Matthews. He says it's urgent family business. I looked at Jake and Amanda, both still processing what they had learned. That would be our father. I suspect news of this meeting has already reached him. I gestured for Jake and Amanda to remain seated while I took the call from our father. His voice crackled through the speakerphone, tense and demanding. Dylan, what's this nonsense Jake is babbling about? He called me crying, saying you own some company. Stop playing games and tell me what's really going on. Hello, Dad. Jake and Amanda are here with me in my office at Technova Industries. I'm the founder and CEO. A long pause. That's ridiculous. You work at some computer repair shop. I've never worked at a computer repair shop, Dad. I founded this company 8 years ago when I was 24. We went public 3 years later. Amanda leaned forward, still looking shell-shocked. Mr. Matthews, your son is worth over $1 billion. Another pause longer this time. Put Jake on the phone. Jake's hands trembled as he spoke. Dad, it's true. His office is bigger than our entire house. He owns the building where I work. He owns the building where I live. I walked to a wall of photographs showing company milestones, acquisitions, and award ceremonies. Dad, remember when you needed that emergency surgery for your herniated disc 5 years ago? The bill was $87,000 after insurance. You told everyone at the country club that you had savings set aside for medical emergencies. We did have savings. Robert's voice came through the speaker, but with less certainty than before. The payment came from an anonymous benefactor account I set up through my financial advisor. I also paid for the physical therapy sessions and the upgraded hospital room that Mom insisted you needed. I turned back to Jake and Amanda. Let me tell you both about the real family history that nobody talks about. Walking to my desk, I retrieved a leather portfolio filled with financial records and photographs. When I graduated from MIT with my computer science degree, I had 3 job offers from major tech companies. The starting salaries ranged from $85,000 to $110,000 per year. Jake looked confused. But you didn't take any of those jobs. No, I didn't. Because 2 weeks before graduation, Dad called me. He'd been laid off from his manufacturing job, and Mom's part-time work at the library wasn't enough to cover the mortgage. You were a senior in high school, Jake, and your college applications were already submitted. I opened the portfolio showing them bank statements and canceled checks. I turned down those job offers and instead took a position with a smaller company that paid $60,000 but allowed me to work remotely from home. I moved back to help with expenses and started freelancing on the side to bring in extra money. Amanda studied the documents, her face growing paler. These show payments for university tuition. Jake's tuition at Washington State, yes. $32,000 per year for 4 years, plus room and board textbooks and spending money. The total came to roughly $150,000. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. I thought Dad's severance package covered everything. There was no severance package. Dad was let go for attendance issues related to his back problems. I worked 18-hour days building freelance clients while you were in college having the full university experience. I pulled out a photograph from Jake's graduation day. Our parents stood proudly beside him in their best clothes. I was missing from the picture. I couldn't attend your graduation because I was in San Francisco meeting with investors about my startup idea. That meeting led to my first round of funding, but it meant missing one of the most important days of your life. Amanda found her voice. Where did you get the money to start a company? I had been saving every penny for 3 years. Living at home, eating ramen noodles, driving a car that broke down twice a week. While you were joining fraternities and going on spring break trips, I was building the foundation of what would become Technova. I showed them more documents. After Jake graduated, there were Dad's medical bills, Mom's car repairs, Jake's job search expenses, and then wedding costs when he got engaged. Jake stared at a copy of his wedding expense spreadsheet. $50,000. You paid for my entire wedding. I also paid for the engagement ring. The one Amanda wears cost $18,000. Jake told everyone he had been saving for 2 years, but the truth is he called me in a panic 3 days before he planned to propose because his checking account had $57 in it. Amanda unconsciously touched her ring, tears forming in her eyes. But the most painful part, I continued, my voice growing heavy, was watching our family's reaction to my success. When Technova started getting media attention, when I appeared on magazine covers and business shows, when my net worth became public knowledge, do you know what our parents told their friends? Jake shook his head. They said I was going through a phase. Mom told people at her book club that I was playing businessman and that eventually I would settle down and get a real job. Dad told his golf buddies that the media was exaggerating my success and that I probably just had a good publicist. I opened another folder, this one filled with returned Christmas and birthday gifts. Every expensive gift I bought for the family got returned or hidden away. The 75-inch television I gave them for Christmas 3 years ago, Dad returned it and bought a smaller one, telling neighbors that I had bad taste and bought things just to show off. Amanda picked up a receipt for a returned Rolex watch. You gave this to your father? For his 60th birthday. I had it engraved with a message about being grateful for all his sacrifices. He returned it the same day and used the money to buy golf equipment. Jake was crying now. Dylan, I had no idea. We had no idea. The worst part was that I kept giving anyway. I kept hoping that someday you would see me as someone worth being proud of. Instead, I became the family's secret shame that needed to be hidden from public view. I pulled out the final document in the folder. This is a letter I wrote to all of you last Christmas. I was going to tell you everything about my success, about my company, about how much I loved being able to help our family. I wanted to invite you all to the company Christmas party so you could see what I had built. Jake reached for the letter, but I pulled it back. I never sent it. Because 2 days before Christmas, I overheard Mom on the phone with Aunt Carol explaining why I wouldn't be at the family gathering. She said I was going through a difficult time financially and that it would be embarrassing for me to be around successful family members. The room fell completely silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of traffic below. Amanda finally spoke, her voice cracking. "We destroyed you, didn't we? We took everything you gave us and then treated you like you were nothing." I looked out the window again, watching clouds move across the Seattle skyline. I just wanted to belong somewhere. I wanted a family that was proud of me, not in spite of my success, but because of it. Instead, I learned to hide who I was to make everyone else comfortable. Jake stood up suddenly, walking to the window. "How do we fix this? How do we possibly make this right?" Before I could answer, Sarah's voice came through the intercom again. "Mr. Matthews, there are 2 people here to see you. They say they're your parents and that this is an emergency." I looked at Jake and Amanda, both still processing the magnitude of what they had learned. It appears the rest of our family has decided to join us. Before our parents arrived, Amanda's phone began buzzing incessantly. She glanced at it, then looked up with growing alarm. "I'm getting hundreds of notifications on Instagram. Something's wrong with my account." I walked around my desk and pressed another button on my intercom. "Sarah, could you ask Marcus to join us and delay my parents for about 10 minutes? Tell them I'm finishing up an important business call." Jake looked confused. "Who's Marcus?" "Marcus Rivera is a private investigator and digital security consultant who works for Technova. He's also become a good friend over the years." Marcus entered the office carrying a laptop and a tablet. He was a lean man in his 40s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Good morning, Dylan. I assume you're ready to proceed with what we discussed." Amanda's phone continued buzzing. She was frantically scrolling through notifications. "I don't understand what's happening. People are commenting on my posts, saying things about lies and fake stories." Marcus opened his laptop and turned it toward Amanda and Jake. "Ms. Matthews, you run an Instagram account called Real Life Am with approximately 53,000 followers, correct?" 54,000. Amanda corrected automatically, then looked confused about why she was defending her numbers at a time like this. "You position yourself as a successful young wife who supports family members through difficult times. You frequently post about acts of generosity and family values." Amanda nodded slowly, glancing nervously between Marcus and me. Marcus clicked to her Instagram profile. "This post from 3 weeks ago shows you at Cascadia Fine Dining, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants." The caption reads, "So grateful I could treat my struggling brother-in-law to a nice dinner tonight. Sometimes family needs extra support. #blessed, #family, first #pay it forward." Jake leaned forward to look at the screen. "I remember that night. Dylan, you paid for that dinner." The bill was $437. I confirmed. "I own a 30% stake in Cascadia through my restaurant investment group." Marcus scrolled to another post. This one from 2 months ago shows Ms. Matthews in what appears to be an expensive apartment. Quote, "Jake and I are so blessed to be able to help family members who are going through tough times. Our guest room is always open for those who need support. #open doors, #family love, #generosity." Amanda's face was turning white. "That's our apartment. But I never said Dylan was staying with us." "The implication was clear to your followers," Marcus continued. "Based on the comments, they believe you're housing and financially supporting Dylan during a difficult period in his life." He scrolled through dozens of comments. "You're such an angel for helping your brother-in-law." And Jake is so lucky to have a wife who cares about family and goals for supporting loved ones in need. This post from last month, Marcus continued, shows you wearing a $15,000 Cartier bracelet with the caption, "When you work hard and stay humble, blessings come your way. Excited to share our good fortune with those who need it most." Jake stared at the bracelet on Amanda's wrist. "I gave that to you for your birthday, but I didn't buy it. The purchase was made with a credit card linked to an account I set up for Jake's expenses," I explained. I wanted him to be able to give his wife nice gifts without feeling financially stressed. Amanda was scrolling through her own posts, now seeing them with new eyes. Oh God. Oh my God. My followers think I'm rich. They think Jake and I are successful and generous. Marcus pulled up analytics on his tablet. Your engagement rates are highest on posts where you talk about supporting family. Several companies have reached out about sponsorship deals specifically because they want to partner with someone who represents family values and generosity. I have 3 brand deals pending, Amanda whispered. They're worth $25,000 total. Had, Marcus corrected. As of this morning, when certain information began circulating in online communities, 2 of those companies have already withdrawn their offers. He clicked to a different screen showing a viral Twitter thread. A tech industry insider who shall remain anonymous posted a thread about family financial abuse. It doesn't mention names, but people are connecting the dots. Jake read over his shoulder. Family members who accept years of financial support while publicly diminishing the benefactor's success. Classic signs include returning expensive gifts hiding the relationship and taking credit for opportunities created by the person they're exploiting. Amanda's hands were shaking as she read comments on her recent posts. People are calling me a fraud. They're saying I'm a fake influencer who lies about her lifestyle. Marcus scrolled to show the devastating numbers. You've lost 1,200 followers in the past 2 hours. Comments on your recent posts have turned from supportive to accusatory. But how did people find out? Amanda asked desperately. I walked to the window, choosing my words carefully. Information has a way of surfacing when patterns become too obvious to ignore. Marcus closed his laptop. The tech community in Seattle is relatively small. When someone notices that Jake Matthews' marketing coordinator seems to live in a luxury apartment and drive an expensive car on a $40,000 salary, questions get asked. When that same person's wife posts about supporting a brother-in-law who happens to have the same last name as Technova's billionaire CEO, connections get made. Amanda buried her face in her hands. My entire online presence is built on lies. Everything I've posted for the past 2 years has been fake. Not fake, I said gently. Just based on incomplete information. Jake stood up and began pacing. Amanda, do you realize what we've done? We've been living off Dylan's money while telling the world we're supporting him. It gets worse, Marcus continued. Several of your followers work in social media marketing. They're professional influence trackers who analyze authenticity for a living. One of them noticed that your expensive purchases and restaurant visits correspond exactly with increases in Jake's bank account. He showed them a spreadsheet someone had created. This person tracked your posts for 6 months and cross-referenced them with public records of Jake's employment start date, salary range, and apartment rental costs. The math doesn't work unless there's another source of income. Amanda looked at me with tears in her eyes. They know, don't they? Everyone knows that everything we have comes from you. The Seattle social media community is talking, Marcus confirmed. Amanda's influence career is essentially over unless she addresses this directly and honestly. Jake stopped pacing and looked at me. What happens now? Do we get sued? Do we get kicked out of our apartment? I was about to answer when Sarah's voice came through the intercom again. Mr. Matthews, your parents are getting quite insistent. They say they won't wait any longer. Amanda's phone buzzed with another notification. She glanced at it and went pale. One of my biggest sponsors just sent an email. They're canceling our contract and demanding I return the products they sent me. Marcus packed up his laptop. I'll leave you to your family meeting. But Dylan, the information we discussed is ready to be released whenever you give the word. After Marcus left, I looked at Jake and Amanda. Both looked like they were in shock, processing the complete destruction of the life they thought they had built. There's something else you need to know, I said quietly. Our parents requested this meeting because they've heard rumors about my success. But they're not here to congratulate me or apologize. They're here because they're worried about how my visibility might affect their own social standing. Amanda looked up from her phone where she was still watching her follower count drop. What do you mean? You'll understand when they get here. Sarah, please send them in. The office door opened and our parents walked in with the kind of forced confidence that comes from years of managing social situations. Mom wore her best outfit, a navy blue dress with pearl accessories that I had anonymously paid for through a department store gift card last Mother's Day. Dad had on his country club blazer with the small gold pin that signified his membership status, a membership whose dues I had been covering for the past 4 years. Dylan, we need to talk, Dad announced, barely glancing at Jake and Amanda. This whole situation has gotten completely out of hand. Mom surveyed my office with a mixture of awe and disapproval. Goodness, this is quite extravagant. I hope you're not wasting money on unnecessary luxuries. Hello, Mom, Dad, please have a seat. They sat down stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with the opulent surroundings. Dad cleared his throat. Now, I don't know what kind of stories you've been telling Jake, but we need to set the record straight about a few things. What kind of stories do you think I've been telling? Mom jumped in. Well, for starters, this ridiculous claim that you own $1 billion company. Robert looked up this Technova business online, and while it's certainly a real company, there's no way you could be the founder. You're only 32 years old. I walked to my desk and picked up a framed photograph. This was taken when Technova went public 3 years ago. I'm ringing the opening bell at the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. Dad squinted at the photo, then at me. That could be anyone. Photos can be manipulated these days. Amanda finally spoke up, her voice shaky from the morning's revelations. Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, it's true. Everything Dylan is saying is true. He owns this company. He owns our apartment building. He's been supporting all of us for years. Mom looked at Amanda with disapproval. Amanda, dear, I think you're confused. Dylan works with computers, yes, but he's always struggled financially. We've been worried about him for years. Actually, I said, standing up, I think it would be helpful if I showed you exactly what I've built. Would you all like to take a tour? Jake and Amanda exchanged glances. They had already been through enough shocks for one morning, but they nodded. Sarah, I called through the intercom. Please arrange for transportation to Meadowbrook Family Restaurants, Sunset Gardens Event Center, Elite Fitness Centers, and Harrison Automotive. Also call ahead to let the managers know I'm bringing guests. Dad frowned. Why are we going to those places? Because I own them. The first stop was Meadowbrook Family Restaurants, a chain of upscale family dining establishments located throughout the Seattle metropolitan area. As our black SUV pulled up to the flagship location in Bellevue, I could see confusion on everyone's faces. This is where we always have our family celebrations, Mom said, looking puzzled. Why are we here? We walked through the front entrance past the hostess station, where a young woman immediately recognized me. Good morning, Mr. Matthews. Ms. Patricia is waiting for you in the private dining room. Patricia Williams, the general manager, greeted us with a warm smile. She was a woman in her 50s with graying hair and laugh lines that spoke of years in the hospitality industry. Dylan. So wonderful to see you, and this must be your family. Dad looked around the familiar restaurant with new eyes. Patricia, how do you know our son? Patricia looked confused by the question. Mr. Matthews owns Meadowbrook Family Restaurants. We've worked together for 5 years now. The silence was deafening. Mom's face went through several different expressions before settling on shock. Every family gathering you've hosted here, I explained every birthday, dinner, anniversary celebration, and holiday meal I've been covering the costs. Patricia has instructions to charge everything to my corporate account. Patricia nodded enthusiastically. The Matthews family gatherings are always wonderful events. Last month's celebration for your anniversary was beautiful, Mrs. Matthews. 46 guests, the seafood special for everyone, And that gorgeous cake from our premium dessert menu. Dad's voice came out as a croak. That dinner cost us $800. No, I said quietly, that dinner cost me $800. You've never paid for a meal here. Amanda was staring at the elegant dining room where she and Jake had held their engagement party. The private room where we celebrated our engagement. The one with the view of the lake. Our premium space, Patricia confirmed. Mr. Matthews personally selected the menu and wine pairings for that evening. Jake slumped against a wall. The engagement party that I told everyone I saved up for months to afford? Our second stop was Sunset Gardens Event Center, a sprawling venue with manicured grounds and multiple ballroom spaces. The wedding planner, Bethany Collins, met us at the entrance with a portfolio under her arm. Mr. Matthews. What a lovely surprise. I hope you're here to see how beautifully the autumn decorations turned out. Bethany was an energetic woman in her 30s who had built a reputation as one of Seattle's premier event coordinators. She led us through the main ballroom where Jake and Amanda had their wedding reception. This is where we held our wedding, Amanda whispered, looking around at the crystal chandeliers and mahogany dance floor. One of our most beautiful celebrations, Bethany said proudly. Mr. Matthews, your attention to detail made that event truly special. The upgraded floral arrangements, the premium bar package, the late-night dessert station. She opened her portfolio to show the original contract. The final bill came to $63,000, including the last-minute additions you requested. Mom sat down heavily in one of the chairs. $63,000 for one evening. Jake told everyone he had been saving for the wedding since high school, Dad said weakly. Bethany looked confused. Oh no, Mr. Dylan Matthews paid for everything. He even upgraded the photography package to include the drone footage and the second videographer. Amanda started crying again. Every single person at our wedding thought Jake was successful enough to afford all of this. Our third stop was Elite Fitness Centers, where Jake worked out with his personal trainer 3 times a week, and Amanda taught yoga classes that she promoted on her Instagram. The facility manager, David Park, greeted me like an old friend. Dylan, great to see you. How's the expansion into Portland coming along? Very well, thanks. David, I'd like you to meet my family. David was a former professional athlete who had transitioned into fitness management. He ran the elite fitness chain with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely believed exercise could change lives. The Matthews family. Of course. Jake, how's the training going with Carlos? And Amanda, your yoga classes are some of our most popular offerings. Jake looked around the state-of-the-art facility where he had been working out for 2 years. David, who pays for our memberships here, David looked puzzled by the question. Mr. Matthews covers all family memberships through his corporate wellness program. He also sponsors the yoga instructor certification that Amanda received. Amanda stopped walking. My yoga certification, the one that costs $3,000? Plus travel expenses to the retreat in Costa Rica. David confirmed. Mr. Matthews wanted to ensure you had the best possible training. Dad was staring at the Olympic-sized pool and professional-grade equipment. This must be the most expensive gym in Seattle. We prefer exclusive, David said with a smile. Our membership fees help us maintain the highest standards and provide personalized service to each member. Our final stop was Harrison Automotive, a luxury car dealership that specialized in European imports. The owner, Michael Harrison, came out to greet us personally. Dylan, perfect timing. The new Audi models just arrived and I thought you might want to take a look. Michael was a third-generation car dealer who had built his reputation on treating every customer like family, especially customers who bought multiple vehicles. Jake suddenly stopped walking. Wait, my car, the Audi A4 that I drive. Beautiful vehicle, Michael confirmed. Mr. Matthews selected it specifically for you. Said he wanted something reliable but stylish for a young professional. I told everyone I got a great deal through my job's fleet program, Jake said quietly. Michael pulled out a sales record. Purchased outright, no financing. $47,000 plus extended warranty and maintenance package. Mr. Matthews also arranged for the custom detailing and premium sound system. Mom was looking around the showroom at cars that cost more than most people's annual salaries. How many vehicles have you purchased here, Dylan? 6 over the past 4 years, I replied. Your Lexus SUV, Dad's Mercedes, Jake's Audi, Amanda's BMW, plus my own cars. Dad's face had gone completely white. My Mercedes, the one I told the country club I worked overtime to afford. Michael nodded enthusiastically. The C-Class sedan with the premium package. Mr. Matthews specified that it needed to be appropriate for someone of your distinguished position. Amanda was leaning against Jake for support. Our entire lifestyle, everything we have, everything we own, everything we've told people about ourselves, it's all been your money. I looked at my family, all of them finally understanding the scope of what I had built and how much I had given them. There's one more thing you need to see. I pulled out my phone and showed them a banking app. This is the account I use for family expenses. The current balance is $2.7 million set aside specifically for helping all of you. Jake stared at the number on the screen. $2.7 million just sitting there. For us. The monthly automatic transfers. I continued cover Dad's country club, dues Mom's spa appointments, both of your car payments, insurance premiums, and discretionary spending money. Mom found her voice. The spa appointments at Azure Day Spa. I thought they were giving me a discount because I'm a loyal customer. I have a corporate account there, I confirmed, for employee wellness programs. We stood in the car dealership showroom, surrounded by vehicles worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, while my family processed the reality that their entire way of life had been subsidized by the son they had excluded from Sunday family gatherings, because he would make the party stink. Dad finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Dylan, why didn't you tell us? I looked out at the Seattle skyline through the dealership's floor-to-ceiling windows. Because I was afraid that if you knew how much money I had, you would treat me differently. I wanted to be loved for who I was not, for what I could provide. Amanda wiped tears from her eyes. But we did treat you differently. We treated you like you were less than us, while you were actually the one taking care of everyone. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In trying to hide my success to preserve authentic family relationships, I had created a situation where my family felt comfortable dismissing and excluding me because they thought I had nothing to offer. Michael Harrison, sensing the emotional weight of our conversation, quietly retreated to his office to give us privacy. There's still more you need to understand, I said softly, about how our community sees our family and what's been happening while you thought I was the failure. The ride back to Technova was silent, except for the soft hum of the SUV's engine and the occasional sniffle from Amanda, who was still processing the destruction of her influencer career. When we returned to my office, Dad immediately took charge of the situation in the way he always did when family crises arose. All right, everyone sit down. We need to figure out how to handle this situation before it gets any more out of control. Mom arranged herself primly in her chair, smoothing her dress and adjusting her pearls. Despite everything she had just learned, she still carried herself with the careful composure she maintained at social functions. Dylan, sweetheart. She began in the tone she used when trying to manage family conflicts. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We had no idea about our success. If we had known, things would have been different. Different how? I asked, settling behind my desk. Dad leaned forward using his most reasonable voice. Well, for starters, we wouldn't have excluded you from family events. We thought you were going through a difficult time financially, and we didn't want to make you feel uncomfortable around successful family members. The words hit me like a physical blow. Successful family members? Mom nodded earnestly. Yes, dear. Your father's position at the country club puts him in contact with very accomplished people. Jake's job in marketing, Amanda's social media presence. We thought it would be awkward for you to be around all of that success when you were struggling. I stared at them, trying to process what I was hearing. You excluded me from family gatherings to protect my feelings about not being successful enough. Exactly, Dad said, clearly pleased that I was understanding their perspective. We were being considerate. Jake, who had been unusually quiet since our tour of my businesses, finally spoke up. Dad, that doesn't make sense. Dylan has been more successful than any of us. He's been paying for everything. Mom waved her hand dismissively. Well, we know that now, dear. But at the time, we were just trying to do what was best for everyone. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a leather folder I had hoped I would never need to use. I want to show you something. Sarah, could you ask Rosa Martinez to come up? Tell her to bring the box from my car. Who's Rosa? Amanda asked. She's been your parents' housekeeper for the past 3 years, I replied. I pay her salary. Mom looked startled. Our housekeeper, but we pay Rosa ourselves. No, you don't. I deposit her salary directly into her account every month. $2,800 plus health insurance and paid vacation. Dad's face flushed red. That's impossible. We budget carefully for household expenses. A few minutes later, Rosa entered my office carrying a cardboard box. She was a small woman in her 50s with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of years of hard work. She nodded respectfully at my parents before setting the box on my desk. Mr. Matthews, this is everything you asked me to save. Thank you, Rosa. Mom, Dad, Rosa has something to tell you. Rosa looked uncomfortable being in the middle of a family confrontation, but she spoke clearly. Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, I have been keeping these items because Mr. Dillon asked me to save anything that you threw away with his name on it. She opened the box and began removing items. Birthday cards that had never been opened. Christmas gifts still in their original packaging. Professional achievement awards, and magazine covers featuring my company. This is the watch you gave Mr. Robert for his birthday, Rosa said, holding up the Rolex I had mentioned earlier. You returned it to the store, but first you threw away the box and the certificate in your bedroom trash. Dad's face went pale. Rosa, this is a private family matter. Yes, sir. But Mr. Dillon has been paying me extra to document what items were discarded because he was worried about your feelings. She pulled out a magazine with my photo on the cover. Forbes magazine with Mr. Dillon's picture. You told me to throw this away because you didn't want guests to see it and ask questions. Mom looked embarrassed. We just didn't want people to get the wrong impression. What wrong impression? I asked quietly. Well, Mom said, fidgeting with her pearls. If people saw magazines with your picture on them, they might think we were bragging, or that we raised you to be boastful about money. Rosa continued removing items from the box. A framed photograph of me receiving an entrepreneur award from the Seattle Chamber of Commerce. A congratulatory letter from the mayor's office about my company's job creation in the city. A Business Journal article about innovative tech startups founded by young entrepreneurs. All thrown away, Rosa confirmed. Plus many personal letters and invitations that came to the house addressed to Mr. Dillon. I took one of the unopened letters from the box. This is an invitation to speak at the University of Washington's graduation ceremony. They wanted me to give the commencement address to the business school. Jake reached for the letter. You were invited to give a graduation speech. That's a huge honor. I turned it down because the date conflicted with Dad's retirement party. I didn't want to miss what I thought was an important family event. Dad looked uncomfortable. I don't remember you mentioning any speaking engagement. Because I never received the invitation. Rosa found it in your trash the week after the party. Mom stood up abruptly. Dillon, I think you're being unfair. We were trying to protect our family's privacy. When people have money, everyone expects them to show off. But you didn't have money, Mom. I had money. You had the money I gave you. Rosa pulled out the final item from the box, a thick stack of photographs. These are pictures from Mr. Dillon's office and his house. You asked me to remove them before your book club meeting last month. The photographs showed me at various company events accepting awards, meeting with other business leaders, and celebrating corporate milestones. All had been displayed in frames throughout my parents' home. You removed pictures of me from your own house, I asked, my voice breaking slightly. Mom's composure finally cracked. Linda Morrison was coming to the book club meeting. Her son works in tech, and she's always bragging about his success. We didn't want her to see the pictures and think we were trying to one-up her. So you hid evidence that I existed. Dad cleared his throat. Son, you have to understand our position. At the country club, there's a certain social dynamic. People are very competitive about their children's success. We didn't want to seem like we were showing off. I opened the leather folder on my desk and pulled out a document. This is interesting, Dad, because I have a recording of you at the country club from 6 months ago. Dad's face went white. A recording? My friend Tyler's father is a member at Grandview. He happened to be there the day you were explaining to a group of men why I wasn't at the annual family golf tournament. I pressed play on my phone. Dad's voice came through the speaker, clear and unmistakable. Our older son, Dylan, is going through some tough times right now. He's having trouble finding steady work in the computer field. It's been hard on him seeing Jake do so well in his marketing career. We thought it would be better if Dylan didn't come today. He gets embarrassed around successful people. The silence in the room was absolute. Amanda was staring at Dad in horror. Jake looked like he might be sick. You told your golf buddies that I was unemployed and ashamed to be around successful people, I said quietly. While I was paying for your country club membership, Mom started crying. Dylan, we didn't mean any harm. We were just trying to manage social expectations. Whose social expectations? Your own embarrassment about having a son who worked with computers. Dad struggled to find words. It's not that we weren't proud of you. It's just that your success was so unusual. People don't understand the tech industry. It was easier to explain Jake's traditional career path. Rosa, who had been listening to this conversation with growing discomfort, spoke up quietly. Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, if I may say something. Mom nodded, still crying. Mr. Dylan has been asking about you constantly for 3 years. Every week when I clean your house, he calls to ask if you seemed happy, if you needed anything, if there were any problems I noticed. He loves you very much. She looked directly at my parents. But you have been throwing away evidence of his life for 3 years. Every achievement, every recognition, every invitation. I have been saving them because it broke my heart to put them in the trash. Jake finally found his voice. Mom, Dad, do you realize what you've done? Dylan has been taking care of all of us while you've been pretending he doesn't exist. We weren't pretending he doesn't exist, Dad protested. We were protecting family harmony. By lying about him to your friends, Amanda said, her voice filled with disgust. By making him feel like a failure while he was secretly supporting everyone. I closed the folder and looked at my parents. There's one more thing you need to know. About what's been happening in your social circle while you've been hiding my success. Mom wiped her eyes. What do you mean? I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Margaret, it's Dylan Matthews. Is this a good time to talk? Margaret Thornton's voice came through the speaker. She was the president of Grandview Country Club and one of Seattle's most prominent socialites. Dylan. How wonderful to hear from you. I hope you're calling with good news about our fundraiser proposal. Actually, Margaret, I'm here with my parents, Robert and Linda Matthews. We're having a family discussion about honesty and social relationships. A pause. Oh, well, that sounds important. Margaret, could you tell my parents what the country club board discussed regarding their membership status? Another pause, longer this time. Dylan, I'm not sure this is the appropriate forum for that conversation. Please, it's important that they understand the situation. Margaret's voice became formal and careful. Very well. The board has been reviewing the Matthews family membership based on concerns about misrepresentation of family circumstances. Dad looked confused. Misrepresentation? Margaret continued. Robert, you've spent considerable time telling other members about your son's financial difficulties and unemployment. However, several board members have done research and discovered that your son Dylan is the founder and CEO of Technova Industries, one of Seattle's most successful companies. Mom gasped. Furthermore, Margaret went on, we've learned that Mr. Dylan Matthews has been quietly supporting numerous charitable causes in our community, including the youth scholarship program that your family has claimed credit for supporting. Dad stammered, we never claimed credit for anything. Robert, you specifically told the scholarship committee that your family's annual contribution came from your retirement savings and Jake's successful marketing career. We now know the donations were made by Dylan through his foundation. I could see the blood draining from both my parents' faces as they realized the scope of what was being exposed. Margaret's voice continued through the speaker. The board is concerned that the Matthews family has been misrepresenting their circumstances to gain sympathy and social standing while actually being supported by one of Seattle's most prominent young entrepreneurs. Margaret, Mom said weakly, we had no idea about Dylan's success. We thought he was struggling. Linda, that would be understandable, except that several members have shown us social media posts from Jake and Amanda claiming to support Dylan financially while simultaneously living a lifestyle that clearly exceeds their stated income levels. Amanda buried her face in her hands. The board feels that this pattern of misrepresentation is inconsistent with the values we expect from Grandview members, Margaret concluded. Your membership status is under review, and you'll receive a formal letter next week outlining the board's decision. I ended the call and looked at my parents. Your entire social circle knows the truth now. They know that I'm successful, that I've been supporting you, and that you've been lying about our family circumstances for years. Dad slumped in his chair. We're going to be kicked out of the country club. Probably, I confirmed. And Jake, your co-workers at Technova, have figured out that you're the founder's brother. Amanda, the influencer community, knows your lifestyle was fake. Everyone in our social network understands what really happened. Jake looked at me with tears in his eyes. Dylan, how do we fix this? How do we possibly make any of this right? I leaned back in my chair looking at my family. 4 people who had spent years excluding me from their lives while living off my generosity. 4 people who were now facing the social consequences of their own deception. That, I said quietly, is a very good question. Before anyone could respond to Jake's question, my office phone rang. Sarah's voice came through the intercom with barely controlled excitement. Mr. Matthews, you have several urgent calls holding. Tyler Brennan from Brennan Consulting is on line 1. He says it's about the article. Channel 7 News is on line 2, asking for comment about a story they're running tonight. And someone from the Seattle Times is on line 3. I looked at my family, all of whom were staring at the phone with growing alarm. Tyler first, please. Tyler Brennan had been my roommate at MIT and was now one of Seattle's top crisis management consultants. His voice came through the speaker with the kind of energy that meant something big was happening. Dylan. I hope you're sitting down because this story is exploding faster than anything I've ever seen. What story? Amanda asked weakly. Tyler, I have my family here in the office. Could you explain what's happening? David Chen from the Seattle Business Journal picked up on the social media buzz about family financial abuse in the tech community. He's been investigating for 3 days, and his article just went live 20 minutes ago. Jake looked confused. Article about what? Tyler continued. The headline is, When Family Success Becomes Family Secret, The Hidden Cost of Tech Wealth. It's about successful tech entrepreneurs whose families take their money while publicly diminishing their achievements. Does it mention us by name? Mom asked fearfully. No names, but the details are specific enough that people in Seattle's business community are connecting the dots. The article mentions a billionaire tech CEO whose family excluded him from gatherings while he secretly funded their lifestyle. It talks about social media influencers who built followings by claiming to support family members They were actually exploiting. Amanda made a choking sound. My Instagram account. People are going to know it's me. Tyler's voice became more serious. Amanda, your account has been posted in dozens of social media groups as an example of influencer fraud. Screenshots of your posts are being shared with comments about family financial abuse. You've lost over 8,000 followers in the past hour. I pulled up Tyler's company website on my computer and shared the screen so everyone could see. Tyler, can you walk us through the scope of what's happening? The story started in Seattle tech circles, but it's going national. Business Insider picked it up 30 minutes ago. Forbes is running a follow-up piece about family dynamics and wealth. 3 different influencer watchdog accounts have posted video breakdowns of Amanda's content. Mom was crying again. National news. This is going to be on national news. Linda, the story isn't really about your family specifically, Tyler explained. It's about a pattern that happens when tech wealth comes into traditional families who don't understand the industry. But the details are specific enough that anyone in your social circle will recognize you. Dad found his voice. What kind of details? Tyler consulted his notes. The article mentions a Seattle Country Club member who told other members his tech CEO's son was unemployed while that son was actually paying for his membership. It talks about wedding expenses at Seattle venues that were secretly funded by the excluded family member. It describes social media posts about supporting struggling relatives who were actually billionaires. Amanda was scrolling through her phone frantically. Tyler, how bad is this for my career? Can I come back from this? Amanda, I'm going to be honest with you. Your influencer career is over. The trust with your audience is completely broken, but that doesn't mean you can't rebuild something authentic and meaningful. Jake stood up and started pacing again. What about my job? What happens when everyone at Technova knows I'm there because of nepotism? I answered that one. Jake, your employment status depends on your performance, not on our relationship. But yes, people will know that I gave you the opportunity. Tyler continued his report. The country club story is getting picked up by Seattle social media accounts. The Grandview Country Club is trending on local Twitter because people are talking about membership policies and social authenticity. Mom looked horrified. Our friends are going to see this. Linda, your friends already know. The article quotes anonymous country club members talking about families who misrepresent their circumstances to gain sympathy. I minimized the computer screen and looked at my family. There's something else you need to understand about how this story is being received. I picked up my phone and opened Twitter. The hashtag family financial abuse is trending nationally. People are sharing their own stories about family members who took their success while treating them poorly. Amanda read over my shoulder. Listen to these comments. My brother paid for my college, but my parents still call him the failure because he didn't become a doctor. I supported my family for 10 years while they told friends I was irresponsible with money. Jake stopped pacing. People are relating to this story. Thousands of people, I confirmed. The response is overwhelmingly sympathetic to the person being excluded despite providing financial support. Tyler's voice came through the phone again. Dylan, you should know that several people have figured out it's your family. Your MIT classmates are posting supportive messages. Business colleagues are reaching out. The response to you personally is extremely positive. What about the response to us? Dad asked quietly. Tyler paused. Robert, I won't sugarcoat this. The response to the family members is harsh. People are angry about the exclusion, the lies, and the social media deception. There are calls for accountability and consequences. Amanda's phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. I'm getting hundreds of comments. People are furious. They're saying I'm a fake, a liar, a fraud who exploited my own family. They're not wrong, Jake said quietly, causing everyone to look at him in surprise. Jake, Mom protested. No, Mom. They're not wrong. We did exclude Dylan. We did lie about our circumstances. Amanda did build her career on false claims about supporting him. We were frauds. I walked to the window looking out at the Seattle skyline while my family processed the reality of their public exposure. Tyler spoke again. There's more, Dylan. 3 major companies have reached out about partnership opportunities because they're impressed with how you handled family financial abuse. The University of Washington called to renew their invitation for you to speak at graduation. And Seattle Children's Hospital wants to discuss your foundation's expansion. Partnership opportunities, Amanda asked. Companies want to work with Dylan because this story shows his character, Tyler explained. He supported his family for years without seeking recognition or trying to control them. That's the kind of person businesses want as a partner. Dad looked confused. But we thought it would hurt his reputation if people knew about our situation. Tyler's response was swift. Robert Dylan's reputation has never been stronger. He's being praised as an example of family loyalty and quiet generosity. You're being criticized as an example of how not to treat successful family members. The intercom buzzed again. Mr. Matthews, I have Margaret Thornton from Grandview Country Club calling back. She says it's urgent. I put the call through to speaker. Dylan, I need to inform you and your parents that the Country Club board held an emergency meeting this afternoon. Dad's face went white. Margaret, please let me explain. Robert, I'm not calling about your membership. I'm calling about Dylan's. Everyone looked confused. Margaret continued. The board would like to offer Dylan Matthews an honorary membership at Grandview Country Club, recognizing his contributions to the Seattle community and his exemplary character in handling difficult family circumstances. I stared at the phone. Margaret, that's very kind, but I'm not sure it's appropriate given the current situation with my parents. Dylan, the board feels that your parents' behavior reflects their issues, not yours. We want to recognize the values you've demonstrated, generosity, loyalty, and grace under pressure. Mom was crying harder now. They're kicking us out and inviting our son to join. Linda, your membership status is still under review, Margaret said diplomatically. But Dylan's character speaks for itself. After Margaret hung up, the office fell silent, except for the sound of Amanda's phone continuing to buzz with notifications. Jake finally spoke. Dylan, everyone can see what kind of person you are. Everyone can see what kind of people we've been. What happens now? I turned away from the window and looked at my family. Now we find out if you're capable of becoming the kind of people who deserve forgiveness. Tyler's voice came through the phone one last time. Dylan, I'll let you handle your family conversation, but I need you to know that this story is changing how people think about family dynamics and wealth. You've become a symbol of doing the right thing, even when it's not appreciated. That's a powerful legacy. After Tyler hung up, I sat back down at my desk and looked at 4 people whose lives had just been turned upside down by the exposure of their own behavior. The question now, I said quietly, is not how to hide from the consequences. The question is how to learn from them. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our family's restored home, preparing for our first genuine Sunday gathering in over 2 years. The morning light streamed through windows that Rosa had cleaned until they sparkled, illuminating a dining room table set for 8 people instead of the usual 4. The house itself looked different now. Gone were the careful decorations chosen to impress country club friends, replaced by family photographs that told the truth about our lives. Pictures of me receiving business awards hung next to photos of Jake's college graduation and Amanda's yoga certification. For the first time, our home reflected all of us. Amanda arrived first carrying a homemade casserole and wearing clothes that looked comfortable rather than Instagram ready. She had lost 47,000 followers in the weeks after the story broke, but gained something more valuable: authenticity and self-respect. Good morning, Dylan, she said, setting the dish on the counter. I wanted to show you something before everyone gets here. She pulled out her phone and opened her rebuilt social media account. Instead of real life Am, her handle now read Authentic Amanda. Her bio said simply, learning to be honest about my journey, Family Financial Abuse Survivors Sharing Real Stories. I have 8,000 followers now, she said quietly. But they're real people who connect with authentic content. I talk about recovering from influencer fraud, rebuilding relationships, and learning to find value beyond material things. I scrolled through her recent posts. One showed her working at a nonprofit organization for financial abuse survivors. Another displayed her first paycheck from a legitimate marketing job with a caption about earning her own way for the first time in years. The best part, Amanda continued, is that 3 companies have reached out about partnerships specifically because they want to work with someone who talks honestly about recovering from mistakes. Jake arrived next, carrying flowers he had bought with money from his own paycheck. Over the past 6 months, he had transferred to a different division of Technova, where no one knew about our relationship. He started at entry level and worked his way up through merit alone. "How's the new position going?" I asked as he arranged the flowers in a vase. "It's hard," he admitted. "I'm learning things I should have learned years ago. But my supervisor, Jennifer, submitted me for a promotion based on the client presentation I did last week. She doesn't know who I am, so I know it's because of my work, not my connections." He paused, looking around the kitchen. "Dylan, I need to tell you something. I've been paying back the money you spent on my wedding and car." I looked at him in surprise. "Jake, that's not necessary." "Yes, it is. I set up an automatic transfer of $800 per month from my checking account to yours. At this rate, I'll have repaid the wedding costs in about 6 years. The car will take another 4 years after that. What about your living expenses?" Jake smiled for the first time in months. "Amanda and I moved to a smaller apartment that we can actually afford on our combined salaries. We're learning to live within our means. It feels good to know that everything we have, we earned ourselves." Our parents arrived together, walking with less of the confident stride they used to display at social events. Dad looked older somehow, but also more genuine. The forced joviality that had characterized his interactions for years had been replaced by something quieter and more authentic. "Hello, son," Dad said, embracing me properly for the first time in years. "Thank you for inviting us." Mom carried a photo album under her arm. "Dylan, I wanted to show you what we've done." She opened the album to reveal pages of pictures and newspaper clippings about my achievements, carefully mounted and labeled with dates. Every award I had won, every article that had featured my company, every recognition I had received was documented chronologically. We went through Rosa's box and found everything we had thrown away. Mom explained, tears forming in her eyes. Then we researched online to find all the things we had missed. We spent 3 months creating a complete record of your accomplishments. Dad cleared his throat. We also wrote letters to everyone at the country club, explaining the truth about our family situation and apologizing for the misrepresentations. "How did that go?" I asked. "We were asked to resign our membership," Dad admitted. "But Margaret Thornton said we could reapply in 2 years if we demonstrated genuine change. Several members told us they respected our honesty in addressing the situation directly." Mom turned another page in the album showing a newspaper clipping from the University of Washington's graduation ceremony. "This is from last month when you gave the commencement address we cost you 6 years ago. We drove down to Seattle to watch from the audience. You were there. We wanted to see you receive the recognition you deserved," Dad said. "We sat in the back and listened to you speak about perseverance and family loyalty. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Jake looked at the photo of me addressing thousands of graduates and their families. What did it feel like finally getting to give that speech? I thought about that day standing at the podium of the university, where I had learned to dream big, speaking to young people about creating their own definitions of success. It felt like coming home to myself, I said honestly. Amanda moved to look at more pages of the album. "Mrs. Matthews, this must have taken incredible effort to put together." It was the least we could do, Mom replied. For 32 years, Dylan has been achieving remarkable things, and we spent the last 10 years trying to hide them. Creating this album helped us understand what we had missed. Tyler and Marcus arrived together, both carrying bottles of wine and wearing the relaxed expressions of friends who had watched a difficult situation resolve positively. "How are the family dynamics progressing?" Tyler asked, settling into a chair at the dining table. "Better than I expected," I replied honestly. "Everyone has been doing the work required for real change." Marcus pulled out his tablet. "I brought an update on the public response to your story. The article about family financial abuse has been read over 2 million times. It sparked a national conversation about hidden wealth in families and the psychology of financial shame." "What kind of conversation?" Amanda asked. "Universities are using it in psychology and business ethics courses," Marcus explained. "Family therapists are sharing it with clients." The Harvard Business Review published a follow-up piece about managing wealth in family relationships. Tyler opened one of the wine bottles. "The best part is that your foundation's applications have increased by 300%. Families dealing with similar dynamics are reaching out for help. I had established the Matthews Family Foundation 6 months earlier, using it as a vehicle for my parents and Jake to earn their way back into my life through meaningful work. Each family member had specific responsibilities and goals." "Dad, how is your volunteer coordinator position working out?" I asked. Dad's face brightened with genuine pride. "I'm managing 12 volunteers who help families navigate financial abuse situations. Last week we helped a woman whose children were stealing her Social Security checks while telling neighbors she was senile." "The position suits him," Mom added. "He's using his social skills for something meaningful instead of just managing impressions." Mom had taken on grant writing for the foundation, using her English degree for the first time in 20 years. "We received word yesterday that the Gates Foundation approved our proposal for expansion into Portland and San Francisco. That's $250,000 to help more families." Jake looked around the table at everyone gathered in our family home. "6 months ago, I was living a lie, taking credit for success that wasn't mine, and excluding the person who made everything possible. Now I'm paying my own way, earning my own recognition, and part of a family that actually knows each other." Amanda nodded. "I went from having 53,000 fake followers who liked a fabricated version of my life to having 8,000 real followers who support my authentic journey. I make less money now, but I sleep better at night." I stood up to make a toast, raising my glass to the people who had learned to see me clearly. To second chances, authentic relationships, and the courage to change. Everyone raised their glasses. "To family," Dad added. "To honesty," Mom contributed. "To earning what we have," Jake said. "To real success," Amanda concluded. As we clinked glasses, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the peace that comes from being loved for who you actually are, not hidden despite who you are. Tyler leaned back in his chair. "Dylan, what's next for you? You've rebuilt your family relationships, your foundation is expanding, and your company just announced its biggest acquisition ever." I looked around the table at faces that no longer carried the careful masks of people managing social impressions. "I think I'd like to write a book about hidden generosity family dynamics and the difference between supporting people and enabling them." "What would you call it?" Marcus asked. I smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought us to this moment. "Something like The Sunday Gathering When Love Looks Like Boundaries." Amanda laughed. "That's perfect, and ironic considering how this all started with us telling you not to come to a Sunday gathering. The best part," Jake said, "is that now our Sunday gatherings are actually worth attending." Mom stood up to start serving the meal we had all contributed to preparing. "Dylan, would you like to say grace?" I looked around the table one more time at a family that had learned to see clearly, to give authentically, and to receive gracefully. "Thank you," I said quietly, for this second chance at belonging somewhere. Thank you for the courage it took for everyone to choose truth over comfort. And thank you for showing me that love isn't about hiding who you are to make others comfortable. It's about becoming who you're meant to be together. After dinner, as we cleaned dishes and shared stories about our week, I realized that the family I had always wanted hadn't been lost. It had just needed to be built on a foundation of honesty instead of hidden generosity. Tyler and Marcus prepared to leave, both commenting on how different our family dynamic felt compared to 6 months earlier. "One last question," Tyler said as he put on his coat. "Do you ever regret how everything played out? The public exposure, the social consequences, the way it all came out?" I considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, my family had excluded me from their lives while living off my success. Today we had shared an authentic meal where everyone contributed something they had earned themselves. "No," I said finally, "I don't regret it. Sometimes the truth has to be inconvenient before it can be liberating." As everyone left that evening exchanging genuine hugs and making plans for next week's gathering, I stood in the doorway of our family home and felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the satisfaction of being seen and appreciated for who I actually was. The Sunday gatherings that had once excluded me had become the foundation for a family that finally knew how to include each other authentically. And that I realized was worth everything we had been through to get here. If you've ever felt unappreciated by the people you care about most, or if you've experienced family members who take your generosity while treating you poorly, I want to know, what boundaries did you have to set to protect your own peace and well-being? Share your story in the comments below, and if this resonated with your own family experiences, please hit the like button to help others find this story. Subscribe for more stories about family dynamics, hidden generosity, and finding the courage to demand authentic relationships, and share this with anyone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by how much they can give to people who don't appreciate them. Thank you for listening to my journey from exclusion to belonging, and I hope your own family relationships are built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation for who you really are.